Hello to all my dear ecologists. My name is Madeline Castillo. Gabriela Marquez is with me, and it is a pleasure to be able to be back in this podcast, your podcast. Today, we will continue to touch in the use of global warming and its multiple consequence for our beloved planet.
Okay, hello, I am Gabriela Marquez and I'm going to talk about global warming, starting with when it happens. Global warming occurs when certain gases in Earth's atmosphere retain heat. These gases let it the light, but they keep the heat like in the gaseous walls of a greenhouse. First, sunlight shines on the Earth's surface when it is absorbed and then returns to the atmosphere as heat. In the atmosphere's greenhouses gases retain some of this heat and the rest escapes into space with more greenhouse gases. More heat is retained. Scientists have been studying the greenhouse effect since 1824, when Joseph Fourier calculated that the air would be colder if there were no atmosphere. This greenhouse effect is what makes the climate on Earth suitable for life. With it, the Earth's surface will be about 60 degrees Fahrenheit colder. In 1895, Swiss chemist Swaben Arius Inc. discovered that humans could increase the greenhouse effect by producing carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas. It is started 100 years of human research that has provided us with a sophisticated understanding of global warming. We can see the consequences everywhere, and some of them are surprising. The heat is not only melting glaciers and sea ice, it is also changing rainfall patterns and causes animals to move around. Some impacts of rising temperatures are already taking place. Ice is melting around the world, especially at the poles, including mountain glaciers in Antarctica. Sea levels rise over the past century has been faster. Some butterflies, foxes, and alpine plants have moved rougher north of to color high run. Research Billy Price has followed the decline of Adeline penguins in Antarctica, where their numbers have dropped from 32,000 breeding pairs to 11,000 in 30 years. But the topic that we will touch on today is that the world's biodiversity has decreased alarmingly in half a century. More than 25 species, almost a third of the known ones, are in danger of disappearing. Climate change will be responsible for 80% of them. Among these species is the polar bear.
Yeah, thank you so much for that introduction, Gabby. And as you can hear, we will talk about in polar bears. And for this, we are accompanied by some experts on this topic, on this subject. Gabby and I have done homework, as you can see, and we will also provide some data as interesting. So take come with us, Amairani Poblano.
Hello, Made and Gabi. Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for being here, Amairani. Also, we have Carolina Valeriano.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Caro. Jocelyn Anaya.
Hello, girls.
Hello. And finally, we have Dylan Mancera.
Hello boys, hello girls.
Hello, thanks so much, guys. And if that's okay for you, I will open this topic by giving a little introduction. So, a few years ago, scientists detected a higher concentration of bears in Russia and Alaska, while in the other frozen areas they have decreased. Because all of the birds were living very happily in their natural habitat, they migrated to the other areas for which they are not prepared. So that's terrifying. But a few years ago, our population of birds had been estimated of 25,000, and today it's barely 20,000. Well, I must just say that I feel very sad touching on this topic because I love the birds and I can't help, but I think I we contribute to global warming growing. But yeah, it's terrifying. And well, we are gonna talk about of this topic and who wants to start this conversation.
Thank you, Madam. And my opinion, I consider that we must become aware and take care of the more of the planet because many animals are being affected, not only polar bears. Why are polar bears important? I consider that if you are important because they belong of the upper part of the food chain and they are an important role in the general health of the marine environment. Polar bears have also been important of the cultures and economies of the communities of the region. They depend on the marine yellow for their survival and are directly affected by climate change. I have investigated and found that these animals are key indicator of the health status of the Arctic. People have not taken awareness of the extinction of polar bears because they are not interested and continue to contaminate. I had not heard how affected these animals were until my research I did. Finally, we have to make more awareness about the care of the environment and the animals.
Thank you, Carol. I'm agree with you because I think that people should raise awareness with this topic because it is delicate.
Personally, I think this animal is really surprising, and there are things that many don't know about these great species. For example, did you know that they can communicate using only their feet? So it seems sometimes unusual. It is very real. With every step a polar bear takes, it both leave a scented chemical trail that had allowed them to communicate across vast territories. And it is incredible that they walk on the ice calmly, doing their things calmly while others look for it. Something that I learned during university is that polar bears have three abilities, and when I found out, I was shocked because it is not something you imagine. But that's the why it is three. You three ALI reduce the amount of ultraviolet radiation that enters your eyes. In this way, so their existence is has protected them from snow blindness, which is a temporary loss of vision caused by the glare of light reflected by large grains of snow or ice. This function is quite useful for polar bears if we consider where they live. I had been to Antarctica and in a conversation that took place between colleagues, I found out that there was a long time ago a polar bear that is one for 9 consecutive days. It's quite really surprising because so at this time I had been studying that I knew that bears are good swimmers, but never that one have swum so much. If I'm not wrong, it was like 687 kilometers for 9 consecutive days that the he was swimming exactly to husband 32 hours without stopping. In case you are wondering, it's surprising.
Yeah, it's a really surprising. It's an interesting fact, and I haven't really heard something like that. Thanks so much for that investigation and for that fact. Thanks so much, Amairani.
Hello, I have an opinion about the subject. According to my knowledge, I tell you this about polar bears. The loss of their habitat, sea ice, is due to climate change. They depend on sea ice as a platform from which they can hunt seals, rest, and breed. The amount of sea ice has long declined and melted for longer periods, so bears are forced to travel longer distances to stay close to the rapidly retreating ice. They were used to being in their habitat, but with the pollution and melting of the poles, the birds have to get used to being closer to humans. The global problems that polar bears have in the endangered zone are: the first point is the conflict between humans and polar bears, as climate change forces polar bears to spend more time on land. They come into contact more often with communities in the region. Unfortunately, these interactions sometimes end badly for humans and bears. The second point is the non-sustainable hunting. Many areas of the Arctic have strong management and monitoring of polar bears, but there are some places where unsustainable hunting appears to be taking place, including illegal and undeclared hunting.
And thanks, Dylan. Wow, that is so shocking, and I can believe that humans are capable of doing with polar bears.
The Norris Law of the Department of Wildlife in Alaska Country presented a report a few weeks ago on that they found in the stomach of 51 polar bears. 13 of the 51 stomach analyses were found to have plastics that came from garbage bags and those offered by some supermarkets, as well as plastic wraps for food. The studies showed that climate change has caused these animals to move increasingly south in research of food. Their presence has increased in human elements that appear on the routes. Researchers from universities from Canada, United States, and Sweden analyzed the blood of 20 polar bears and then living in Alaska and then in Canadian Hudson Bay. The samples contained high levels of industrial chemicals, but the Alaskan bears had hidden levels. The CBC chain reported that the Canadian Northwest Territories Office of the Environment began requesting their support from hunters belonging to various indigenous groups. They have been authorized to shoot polar bears due to ancestral rights. The authorities asked these people to send photographs of the stomach of these animals or to preserve these organs for further analysis. Its objective was to know in a more detailed what's the degree of garbage consumption among the polar bears in the area. CBC interviewed two of these hunters. One of them commented, "When I open the bear's stomach, I find into pieces of seal, as well as aluminum foil and candy wrappers."
Wow, thank you so much for that investigation. Just that's a terrifying, right? Well, I've never heard it before. Thank you so much for that.
Yes, Made. I can believe that the only problem and enemy of animals, in this case polar bear, is the human. I think that we learn a lot of, and maybe most of the people don't know these problems polar bear, and for us it's so sad and important. That is all for us today. Thank you for being with us, and thanks to our guest. Um, See you on the next broadcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Bye.